Indeed, you have arrived at the correct destination. This discourse will meticulously deliver precisely what its title promises. For Carl Jung, with profound foresight, unequivocally cautioned us. The most perilous juncture in an individual's existence is not the moment of overt collapse, but rather the protracted period during which one maintains a facade of well-being for an excessive duration. Today, our exploration will delve into the precise instant he posited as the quiet genesis of comprehensive internal disintegration. A significant majority of individuals harbor the misconception that feigning contentment is innocuous, perceiving it merely as a form of emotional fortification. However, what if this very armor transmutes into an inescapable confinement? What if silence itself emerges as the inaugural indication of an underlying and considerably more profound affliction? This will not constitute another superficial discourse on self-help tenets or the practice of feigned optimism. Instead, this will serve as an exhaustive investigation into the exact psychological inflection point when your intrinsic self relinquishes its endeavor to be acknowledged. Furthermore, we will examine Jung's predictions regarding the subsequent repercussions. This perspective, I assure you, has never been articulated in such an illuminating manner, and once assimilated, your perception of pretense will be irrevocably altered. So what compels so many to assert their well-being when in truth they are anything but? Your day commences. You retrieve your mobile device. You proceed with your daily preparations. You offer smiles to those you encounter. You verbally affirm your positive state. Yet beneath this veneer, an unsettling quietude persists, a form of emotional static that you have assiduously conditioned yourself to disregard. You navigate your day as if no irregularities exist, despite an intrinsic sense of disquietude. But how could you possibly articulate this sensation aloud when its very nature remains indefinable to you? This constitutes an experience that most individuals never openly discuss. It does not align with society's conventional understanding of depression. It is not a grief that can be attributed to a specific loss. It is not a trauma that can be precisely identified. It is simply an emptiness, an unspecific sensation that an internal component of your being is askew, detached, indistinct. However, life's relentless march does not pause for ambiguity. Consequently, neither do you. You persist in your pretense, and paradoxically, the world validates this behavior. Carl Jung harbored a profound fascination with this pervasive silence, this emotional desensitization concealed beneath the veneer of conventional existence. He considered this internal state to be considerably more perilous than an overt psychological breakdown. The rationale is clear. When one experiences a public collapse, others inevitably take notice. Conversely, when an individual is subtly deteriorating internally while projecting an outward display of cheerfulness, this internal erosion goes entirely unobserved. This lack of external recognition subsequently leads to an internal questioning of one's own lived experience. You find yourself pondering whether you are merely being overly dramatic. You begin to wonder if everyone else possesses a superior capacity for navigating life's challenges compared to yourself. However, you are not being dramatic. You are experiencing a disconnection, not from life itself, but from your authentic self. This is the truth you are inadvertently concealing from yourself. This emotional disengagement does not signify an inherent flaw within you. Rather, it indicates the presence of something profound that remains unexpressed. The majority of individuals who feign normalcy have, over time, meticulously trained themselves to suppress their emotions. This is not due to an inherent dishonesty, but rather because they once assimilated the lesson that the expression of their feelings was unsafe. Perhaps you were admonished to be resilient when you exhibited tears. Perhaps your sorrow was met with an unresponsive silence. Perhaps your anger elicited a withdrawal from others. Consequently, you adopted the most pragmatic strategy available to an intelligent child. You adapted. You commenced a process of self-censorship. You offered laughter when your true inclination was to weep. You conveyed agreement when your actual sentiment was disagreement. You remained in situations from which you yearned to depart. And with the passage of time, your genuine self receded into the background, supplanted by a socially acceptable iteration of yourself. This version is easily embraced, readily commended, effortlessly integrated, yet profoundly challenging to inhabit with a sense of genuine vitality. This is because that particular rendition of you does not represent your complete self. It is a mask, a meticulously crafted performance, a protective mechanism that once served its purpose, but now feels profoundly constricting. Carl Jung designated this phenomenon as the fragmentation of the self, a schism between the external persona and the intrinsic truth. When our public presentation of ourselves diverges irrevocably from our private reality, a profound tension gradually, almost imperceptibly, accumulates. This tension persists until even periods of rest feel utterly draining, until even moments of peace feel devoid of substance. The insidious transformation of pretense into the fundamental problem is a gradual process. One does not become disconnected from their authentic self instantaneously. It occurs in incremental fragments, a subtle silence here, a smile offered without genuine intent, a truth deliberately withheld. Eventually, the internal voice that once served as a guide diminishes to a whisper, then to an inaudible murmur, and finally to complete silence. This, according to Jung, was the chilling reality he perceived with such clarity. The true peril lies not in experiencing an abundance of emotion, but in the complete absence of feeling. For when you cease to feel, you simultaneously lose the capacity to discern what genuinely matters. You cease to recognize when you are fatigued, when you are sorrowful, when you are disoriented. Instead, you operate on an automatic pilot, a mere vestige of a person who once harbored aspirations. You may continue to pursue objectives, to achieve accomplishments, to share laughter with companions, yet none of these experiences resonate deeply. None of them penetrate the layers of your being that are in dire need of healing, because the very essence of you that is in pain remains buried beneath the elaborate performance. And you have become so accustomed to this pretense that you fail to perceive it. However, something invariably betrays this internal state. The prolonged gazes out of windows, the abrupt onset of irritability, the peculiar discomfort in your chest, the dreams that possess an unsettling vividness, the pervasive numbness that infiltrates moments that should elicit joy. These are not insignificant details. They are crucial clues, subtle indicators from your soul, imploring you to re-examine your internal landscape. The precise moment you abandon your pretense is the moment you initiate the process of healing. You are not compelled to experience a dramatic breakdown to instigate transformative change in your life. Occasionally, all that is required is an act of profound honesty, a solitary, quiet moment where you finally concede, "I am not well." And this admission does not signify weakness, it signifies authenticity. Jung famously asserted that, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. In essence, pretense not only inflicts harm upon you, but it also exerts control over you. It transmutes your life into a meticulously choreographed performance. And with every utterance of "I'm fine" when you are unequivocally not, the script of your life becomes more rigidly defined. However, the instant you deviate from that script, even in the slightest degree, you commence the reclamation of your fundamental truth. You begin to perceive what you genuinely feel, rather than what you are socially conditioned to feel. You start to establish connections between your pervasive exhaustion and your unexpressed emotions, between your persistent stress and your tendency towards people-pleasing, between your anxiety and your silence. This is not a demonstration of weakness. It is an awakening of awareness. And awareness fundamentally is the genesis of all subsequent transformation. Once you embark on the journey of naming that which you have assiduously avoided, you imbue it with form. And once it possesses form, it can be confronted. It can be experienced. It can be processed and moved through. This does not necessitate the disclosure of every personal detail to every individual. You do not owe your narrative to the world at large, but you unequivocally owe it to yourself. For truth does not facilitate healing when it remains concealed. It facilitates healing when it is acknowledged, even if the sole listener is yourself. And gradually, you commence to reestablish confidence within yourself. You begin to discern the signals, the tightness pervading your physical form, the inflection in your vocal delivery, the instances where you assent but harbor an internal dissent. You cease to forsake your authentic self for the sake of immediate ease. You initiate the selection of authentic engagement over the pursuit of flawlessness. This transformation is subtle in its manifestation. It does not generate sensational headlines, yet internally everything undergoes a profound alteration. You recommence the experience of emotion, to shed tears anew, to find repose without experiencing culpability, to articulate thoughts without trembling. And it is within those junctures, those minuscule fissures of candor, that your inherent spirit starts its journey of reconnection. You are no longer engaging in pretense. You are actively participating, not in the theatrical presentation of existence, but in the genuine lived encounter of it. And when that phenomenon transpires, the authentic process of healing commences. By the juncture, you start posing the inquiry to yourself, am I merely feigning? It is already past the point of no return because the performance has become ingrained within your being. It manifests in the manner you smile when your true inclination is to scream. It is evident in the way you utter, I am fine, when your entire internal landscape is undergoing a profound disintegration. And it is palpable in the ensuing silence when no one perceives your distress or, even more disconcertingly, they genuinely accept your facade. Carl Jung posited that each individual adopts a persona, a metaphorical visage we construct to conform to societal expectations. It facilitates our survival. It fosters a sense of acceptance. However, when that mask becomes inextricably linked with who we believe ourselves to be, we lose access to our genuine essence. And the longer this facade is maintained, the more agonizing its eventual removal becomes. Not solely due to the apprehension of others' reactions, but because of the fear that you might not embrace what resides beneath. Perhaps you cultivated the role of the jester. Perhaps you evolved into the consistently dependable individual. Perhaps you embodied the high achiever, the caregiver, the one who consistently maintained an outward appearance of composure. But beneath every identity that garners commendation, there frequently lies a narrative of profound suffering, a history where the expression of your true self was not deemed safe. Consequently, you transformed into a version of yourself that was more readily embraced, and initially it yielded positive results. You received the validation, you garnered the accolades, you cultivated the relationships. But then arrived the moments that defied your expectations, the sudden onset of panic amidst tranquility, the profound sadness juxtaposed with success, the pervasive sensation that irrespective of the multitude of individuals who express affection for you, none of them truly comprehend you. And that sudden and profound realization, it fractures something profoundly significant, something you have diligently endeavored to keep concealed for years. The instant you sever your connection from your authentic self, everything begins to feel devoid of substance. Dialogues feel meticulously rehearsed. Accomplishments feel hollow. Interpersonal connections feel akin to mirrors reflecting a projected image of you that others have grown accustomed to, rather than the person who is genuinely present. You commence living in a bifurcated reality, the external realm where all appears to be in order, and the internal domain where the stress escalates, where the internal monologue intensifies, where the relentless emotional cacophony never subsides. However, because this internal world remains unseen by others, you begin to entertain the notion that perhaps it is an experience unique to you. Perhaps you are fundamentally flawed. Carl Jung issued a warning regarding this internal disjunction. He proclaimed, "The most perilous individual is not the one who is enraged or adrift. It is the one who has fragmented their own being. The one who approaches life lacking a significant portion of their voice, a substantial part of their fundamental requirements, a considerable segment of their inherent truth, and eventually the act of pretending becomes utterly debilitating. You lose awareness of your genuine emotional state. You find yourself laughing when you are emotionally numb. You acquiesce when your deepest desire is to vocalize dissent. You diminish your presence when an intrinsic part of you yearns to expand. This is the true cost exacted by the act of pretense. It is not merely your happiness, but your very perception of reality. You begin to distrust your own judgment. You question your innate intuitions. You solicit counsel from others regarding matters your heart already intrinsically understands, and you persist in circumstances that do not serve your well-being because you are unwilling to cause disappointment to anyone, even though you are progressively eroding your own identity in the process. The initial phase is not characterized by dramatic upheaval. It does not entail resigning from your employment or embarking on a journey of self-discovery. It is more understated, more subtle. It involves recognizing those instances when you are performing. It is about intercepting the moment before you utter, "I'm fine," and then posing the question, "Am I truly?" It is about observing the tension in your jaw when you are feigning composure. It is about hearing the internal voice that articulates, "I do not desire this," before it is silenced. Jung believed that the process of healing originates in self-awareness. When you begin to perceive the mask for its true nature, not inherently malevolent, not inherently shameful, but simply obsolete, a mechanism you once required for survival that now impedes your capacity for genuine living. And the instant you articulate its presence, you establish emotional distance, create psychological space, and reclaim personal power. The subsequent step involves granting yourself permission. Permission to experience emotions, permission to harbor aspirations, permission to undergo transformation. Not because external validation has been granted, but because your inner spirit is actively seeking it, because the burden of remaining silent is excessively high, and the prospect of embracing truth is beginning to resemble liberation. This may necessitate communicating to someone, "I am not well." It might involve declining an offer when your habitual response has always been affirmation. It might entail disengaging from a situation that appears desirable but feels fundamentally incongruous. These moments are inherently terrifying. They challenge your established self-image, but they facilitate your reconnection with your authentic self. And in that re-engagement, something unexpectedly profound transpires. You do not disintegrate. You align yourself harmoniously. You begin to laugh and genuinely experience joy. You begin to weep and experience catharsis. You sit in quiet contemplation and experience tranquility, not anxiety, because you are no longer concealing anything. You are no longer disoriented. The truth is, you are not fragile. You are undergoing an awakening. For countless years, you perceived your emotional collapse as an indication of failure, that the instances you were unable to maintain composure signified a loss of control. However, Carl Jung offered a different perspective. He posited that the breakdown is precisely where the breakthrough commences, that the act of falling apart is not the culmination of your existence. It represents the dissolution of the version of you that could no longer withstand the weight of truth. Therefore, if you are experiencing increased frequency of tears, you are not fundamentally flawed. You are thawing. If you are experiencing profound exhaustion, you are not indolent. You are burdened by an excessive load. If you feel adrift, it is not an indication of your failure. It is because the life you constructed was never designed to accommodate your authentic self. And that is acceptable, because now you perceive it. Now you are aware. And once knowledge is acquired, it cannot be unlearned. Once you discern the imperfections in the mask, the compulsion to discard it becomes overwhelming. And that is when something genuinely profound begins. The individuals in your immediate environment might not comprehend your journey. It's possible that certain individuals in your life might observe a shift in your demeanor, articulating this change as if you've fundamentally altered. However, what they genuinely mean to convey is, "I no longer recognize you now that you are no longer diminishing yourself." This observation, this perception of your transformation, is not a responsibility you are obligated to bear. Your primary objective is not to ensure the comfort of others through your self-effacement or by maintaining an inconspicuous presence. On the contrary, your fundamental task is to reclaim your authentic selfhood fully, with unwavering intensity and conviction. In a related vein, the eminent psychologist Carl Jung termed this profound inner journey individuation, the inherent process through which an individual becomes the person they are truly meant to be. This is not about conforming to societal expectations, nor is it about fulfilling the predetermined roles your family might have envisioned for you. It's certainly not about perpetuating the persona you meticulously cultivated over time to gain acceptance or avoid conflict. Instead, individuation refers to unearthing the genuine version of yourself that has been buried beneath multiple strata of apprehension, culpability, and an ingrained propensity for people-pleasing. This emerging authentic version of yourself, crucially, does not seek external validation or applause. Its deepest desire is for profound alignment, a congruence between your inner self and your outward expression. It does not actively pursue widespread approval or strive to be universally liked. Instead, it yearns to be genuinely understood and known for who it truly is. It has no intrinsic need to impress others. Rather, its aspiration is to forge authentic, meaningful connections. This iteration of your being, while perhaps not flawless, possesses an undeniable potency precisely because of its inherent authenticity. And once you experience this profound realness, even for the briefest of moments, it irrevocably alters your perspective and trajectory. There is no possibility of reverting to your former self. You simply cannot and will not return. This is because no amount of social conformity or fitting in is worth the profound cost of abandoning your true self again. This brings us to the persistent question of why, even after the initial stages of healing have commenced, you might still experience the sensation of faking it. You have indeed embarked on the journey of speaking your truth. You have begun the arduous process of shedding the elaborate mask you once wore. You are actively allowing a spectrum of emotions to surface and be acknowledged: sadness, bewilderment, and even unexpected moments of pure joy. Yet subtly, in the recesses of your consciousness, a faint inquiry persists. Am I merely performing a different role now? This internal questioning is understated, yet it lingers, prompting you to ponder whether your healing is a genuine transformation or simply another character you are attempting to embody. This persistent, questioning voice originates from what Jung referred to as your shadow, that inherent part of you that remains apprehensive, still convinced of its own inadequacy. Even after you successfully dismantle long-standing detrimental patterns, even after you consciously disengage from toxic roles and environments, there can be a lingering feeling that a fragment of you remains ensnared in a state of mere survival. The act of pretending may no longer manifest as overtly as before. It has become more subtle, less conspicuous, but it undeniably persists. It's a quiet internal monitor, vigilantly assessing whether you are genuinely permitted to be your authentic self, if it is truly safe to do so this time around. Carl Jung posited that the shadow does not dissipate with a singular act of courage or a momentous decision. Its integration demands time, dedicated attention, and profound compassion. You cannot eradicate deep-seated pain overnight. Instead, you gradually acquire the wisdom and resilience to coexist with it, without allowing it to dictate the course of your life any longer. And this is precisely the stage you find yourself in now. You are actively learning to navigate your existence without the need for constant performance, without the compulsion to excessively explain yourself, and without the perpetual drive to prove your worth. However, similar to an individual relearning to walk after a debilitating injury, each step forward can feel inherently unstable and precarious. You find yourself prone to overthinking, to meticulous analysis, to constantly questioning if you are proceeding correctly. It is crucial to understand that this sensation is not indicative of failure. It is, in fact, a powerful testament to your growth. For perhaps the first time, you are consciously prioritizing authentic presence over the elusive pursuit of perfection. And this, undeniably, is uncharted territory. The individuals within your social circle may still harbor a desire for the old version of you, the perpetually cheerful one, the consistently agreeable one, the version that never challenged the established interpersonal dynamics. And when you cease to play that familiar role, it can feel as though the atmosphere around you grows silent, as if people are genuinely unsure how to interact with the real you. But allow this reaction to serve as a significant indicator, not that you are making an error, but rather that you are, at long last, doing something profoundly right for yourself. This final vestige of pretending is arguably the most perilous, because it can convincingly masquerade as genuine healing. It might manifest as uttering the correct phrases, employing appropriate terminology, or even sharing insightful reflections on social media. Yet beneath this veneer, you may still experience a profound hollowness. This is because even though you are no longer actively deceiving others, you are still falling short of being entirely honest with yourself. You may still be burdened by shame, the shame of having once required the mask, the shame of not recognizing the truth sooner, the shame of having performed for such an extended period that you have forgotten what authentic joy truly feels like. This deep-seated shame, in turn, induces hesitation. It whispers to you that if you were truly whole, you would no longer be grappling with these internal conflicts. However, Jung would vehemently disagree with such a premise. He firmly believed that the individual who consciously confronts and endures suffering is, in fact, more complete and integrated than the one who wholly evades pain. This is because mere awareness in itself does not signify the cessation of suffering. Rather, it marks the crucial commencement of profound transformation. And transformation, by its very nature, is an inherently chaotic and often messy process. You will inevitably experience moments of significant progress, taking 3 steps forward, only to stumble backward into a painful memory. You will feel a surge of unwavering confidence in one instant, only to question every aspect of your being in the next. This oscillation is not a sign of regression. It is, instead, a vital component of integration. It is the intricate process of seamlessly weaving your shadow self into the fabric of your overall wholeness. It is not to be viewed as a defect, but rather as irrefutable evidence that you have endured, that you have evolved, and that you are no longer merely performing a display of strength. You are unequivocally living in your truth. And the path of truth is rarely linear. Some days it will present itself as an exhilarating sensation of liberation. On other days, it will feel like an overwhelming sense of isolation, particularly when those around you have not yet grasped the profound journey you are undertaking. However, resist the urge to retreat or diminish yourself merely to appease their discomfort. Do not don the mask once more solely to circumvent moments of tension, because it is precisely within these moments of tension that genuine connection begins to coalesce. When you courageously reveal your authentic self, you inadvertently create a safe space for others to do the same. And while it is an undeniable reality that some individuals will choose to withdraw, those who choose to remain are doing so for the genuine you, not for the carefully constructed performance. And that, unequivocally, is a treasure beyond measure. This entire transformative process commences with an act of surrender. This is not a capitulation in the sense of giving up, but rather a profound yielding to the inherent truth you have carried within you all along. The fundamental truth that your intrinsic worth was never predicated on how useful, agreeable, impressive, or low maintenance you could be. Your worth is not determined by the perfection with which you can feign a persona. It resides in your very existence, your vibrant aliveness, the simple act of your breath. Carl Jung was a firm believer that when you finally cease the act of pretending, you establish a sacred connection with something profound, your soul, and your soul, crucially, has no interest in superficial performance. Its deepest desires are for authentic presence, profound stillness, insightful reflection, and undeniable depth. Your soul yearns to pose challenging questions. What do I genuinely desire? What am I truly afraid of? What aspects of myself am I meticulously protecting? What choices would I make if I were entirely liberated from the fear of judgment? These profound inquiries serve to draw you closer to your authentic self. They act as catalysts, bringing back fragments of your being that had fallen silent. The part that dared to dream, the part that courageously asserted no, the part that expressed itself through dance or tears or by articulating its needs. The part that inherently understood it did not require external permission to simply exist. And as you progressively reestablish this vital connection with your true self, the act of pretending gradually begins to dissolve on its own accord. This is not because you forcefully compelled its departure, but rather because it no longer serves any purpose. It simply no longer fits. The smile that once functioned as a protective shield now feels like an oppressive burden. The familiar jokes that once elicited laughter no longer resonate in the same way. The individuals you once strived so relentlessly to impress gradually begin to appear inconsequential because your attention has shifted. You are now attuned to a different voice, your profound inner voice. And that voice, however subtle its whispers may have been, has been conveying the unvarnished truth throughout this entire journey. You simply hadn't reached a point where you were prepared to accept it yet. Furthermore, the crucial insight you were seeking had always resided within your own being. This isn't a flamboyant display. It's certainly not some elaborate cinematic revelation. The definitive instant when you cease maintaining a facade isn't accompanied by fanfare. Instead, it's subtle, possessing a chilling simplicity. It's that precise moment you awaken and internally declare, I am no longer capable of sustaining this. And this isn't uttered with desperation, but rather with a calm, firmly established, and irreversible certainty. You perceive this transformation reflected in your gaze. You detect it in the timbre of your voice. You experience it in the fundamental rhythm of your respiration. It's when you cease the act of performing. That precisely is the indicator Jung was alluding to. That pivotal juncture when the illusion shatters. When your innermost self quietly communicates that enough is indeed enough. And this time, you genuinely heed that inner voice. You don't impulsively shut down opportunities. You don't indiscriminately destroy everything around you. You simply discontinue the pretense. You stop emitting laughter at things that genuinely offer no amusement. You cease endorsing viewpoints that frankly feel incorrect. You discontinue accommodating others purely to maintain a superficial harmony, understanding implicitly that a peace constructed upon silence is not authentic peace. It is unequivocally a performance. And in that very instant, your authentic journey commences. You begin to exist not as a mere imitation, not as a disguise, not as a reflexive response to the expectations imposed by others, but as your genuine self. Initially, this can be quite disorienting. You might experience feelings of exposure, a profound vulnerability, yet you are not succumbing. You are undergoing a profound reawakening. You are reconnecting with the individual you were before the charade ever began. And on this occasion, you are electing to embody that person not for the sake of external approval, but for the profound liberation it offers. Those within your social circle may struggle to comprehend this shift. Some might even endeavor to draw you back into your previously established roles, but now you possess an undeniable awareness. You have glimpsed beyond the superficial curtain, and once that insight has been gained, it becomes impossible to feign ignorance of what you've witnessed. Therefore, you persist, progressing incrementally, embracing each newly discovered truth with every conscious breath. And at some undefined point along this trajectory, the emotional discomfort begins to diminish. The internal strain dissipates. You laugh, not as a mechanism to conceal, but because authentic joy resonates within you. You shed tears, not from a place of apprehension, but because you feel genuinely secure. And you finally grasp that you are no longer feigning anything. You are present, you are complete, you are finally at peace within yourself. So this is my earnest request of you. Share with me in the comments section which particular aspect of this message resonated most deeply with you. What protective facade are you, at long last, prepared to discard? And if you aspire to delve even further into your own being, I encourage you to subscribe. Not for my benefit, but for yours. Because engaging in such honest self-expression, even within the digital realm, is where the process of healing truly originates. This is more than merely a content channel. It represents a quiet, yet powerful transformation, and you are already an integral participant in it.